the serial killer who terrorized Washington state. When people do something evil, they try to justify their actions by stating their motives. But when there is no apparent reason for doing evil, other than the pleasure to commit it, then that's something worth talking about. Let's look into the life of such evildoers, shall we? For today's video, we shall be taking a deep dive into the life of the most famous serial killer in US history. Ladies and gentlemen, you will not believe your ears' eyes when you watch this, to see how crafty the human heart can be in carrying out evil or good. Here goes your man Gary Rigdway, alias the Green River Killer. Gary Leon Rigdway, the second son of Mary Thomas Rigdway, was born in Salt Lake City, Utah on the 19th February, 1949, and raised near Seattle's Pacific Highway. He came from a distressed, somewhat troubled home. The mother is described as domineering. Both parents clashed violently during arguments. He later reported that he had conflicting feelings of anger, sexual attraction towards his mother, and romanticized with the idea of killing her. He was a below-average student in school due to his dyslexia, and so he was held back in high school for a year. After high school, he was sent to Vietnam after joining the U.S. Navy and served on a supply ship and witnessed combats. After his military service, he got a job painting trucks, and he kept the job for 30 years, got married thrice, all the while carrying out his sinister activities underneath. How did this boy with quite a disturbing childhood transform into a cold-hearted serial killer? Well, his first murder attempt was at 16, when he led a 6-year-old boy into the woods and stabbed him through the ribs into his liver. Fortunately, the boy survived. Gary's dad was a bus driver, and he always complained about the presence of sex workers in the area. Apparently, this stimulated a desire for insatiable sex with sex workers in Gary. He hated them for being in the neighborhood, but he still engaged their services always, and he hated paying them for their services. What further fueled his hatred for them was his fanatical religious beliefs. He was a religious man who was torn between his beliefs and his lusts, thus, the killings. During his sexual activities with prostitutes or runaways, after minutes of intercourse from behind, he would wrap his forearms around the front of their necks and use the other arm to pull back as tightly as he could so he can strangle them. He killed most of his victims in his house, his truck or secluded area, and dumped them in wooded areas around the Green River at Seattle, hence the name, the Green River Killer. He would sometimes return to the victims' bodies and engage in necrophilia. He'd sleep with the bodies. He did this so he will reduce his exposure to being caught. He claimed to have murdered as many as 80 women, and he pleaded guilty to 48 counts of murder when he was finally caught in 2003. He pleaded guilty to a 49th count when the remains of one of his victims were discovered in 2011. In 2023, the remains of one of his victims, Lorianne Raspotnik, a 15-year-old, was identified using DNA testing tech. Her remains were discovered in Auburn, Washington. Back in Gary confessed in 2002 to placing 2 of his victims in that same area. As you have seen, devils don't usually have horns. They sometimes come as angels of light, looking so serene, peaceful and calm, but with evil intent. So you really cannot stop people from being evil, but you can protect yourself and all that are yours. Learn to do this. Our heart goes to the victims of the Green River Killer. May they continue to find solace from the losses brought upon them through Gary. Do you know of any victim of his, or is there any crime or killer you will like us to cover? Do let us know in the comment section. Until then, see you in the next video.